This is Radar from the Entertainment Blog coming at you with another edition of Movie Reviews and Observations number 197, closing up on 200. So, I started one of my 3 quote-unquote paying jobs this week. So, with that, I was unable to get exactly 7 movies viewed. So, the first movie I watched was What Happens Later on Sunday night, where this is really Meg Ryan. She wrote the script, produced it, directed it, etc., and then cast it herself, and my guy David Duchovny in the movie. And this movie is more drama than it is comedy, so they need to change that. It is at least 100 minutes with credits, but it's 90-something, so that at least means it's not too long of a movie. But what it is that they get some little middle-of-nowhere airport because a lot of their flights had to be grounded there, or it was a transfer point because of bad weather. Whatever the case is, they bump each other at airport, they reconnect in the fact that they dated years ago, and they start to rehash all the issues of when they were dating each other, if one broke the other one's heart, who loved each other more, who broke up with who, what was the issue, because they've all moved on. Apparently he's married with a kid, and it was just kind of silly and crazy with the PA announcer talking directly to them, breaking the fourth wall, and them all this other stuff. So I just felt like it was average, and it was okay. I don't think it was that great of a movie. I thought it was okay. And I watched anything with David Duchovny. I then watched the movie Hotel Transylvania 4Mania, the 4th of one in this franchise. And I understood that Keegan-Michael Key has been the voice of the Mummy since CeeLo Green was the first one. But obviously, if in this movie it's been so long that I don't even know that Kevin James, I don't know if he voiced the character in the second or even the third one, but apparently Kevin James did not voice the Frankenstein monster. And of course, we got David Spade, and we have Steve Buscemi as the other 2 friends. And I thought throughout this whole movie that Adam Sandler was voicing Drac the vampire, because it sounded exactly like how Adam Sandler sounds like when he's making that Transylvanian vampire accent, like he's European in a way. It's got Andy Samberg and Selena Gomez still. Molly Shannon and a few other people voicing the women in this movie. And Jim Gaffigan voicing the old guy who kills animals, Helsing, trying to kill creatures, and his granddaughter, who's supposedly Catherine Hahn, who's married to Drac, which I completely forgot about. Fran Drescher is Mrs. Frankenstein, I remember that. This whole movie he was ready to retire, but then he goes, oh no, Andy Samberg's character is going to ruin the whole entire thing. Oh my God. I can't do that. So he makes something up to Andy Samberg, and it caused a whole reaction of they turn human and he turns into a monster. The only way to fix it is to go somewhere in the middle of, South America to go get something. And they're on a whole entire adventure to fix the turning into a monster and turning into human. And it was a good message of just yes, Johnny's different, Andy Samberg's character, but you got to accept him, and you got to realize he's a part of your family because your daughter loves him, and you got to move on. And it was interesting to see what these monsters look like as humans. That was an interesting animation decision here. I just am disappointed that no one said that Adam Sandler is no longer voicing Drac, and you got someone to sound exactly like him, and I don't know who was sounding like Kevin James, but we understood it. It went from CeeLo Green to Keegan-Michael Key. That was obvious. I don't know why David Spade and Steve Buscemi, are both in this movie still, but Adam Sandler and Kevin James are not, because this is an Adam Sandler production. But I liked it. It was really good. I enjoyed watching it. It's definitely kids appropriate. And it lists here 88 minutes with credits. And with animated credits, they're long. So it's not even an hour and 20 minutes-ish, Then I watched The Martian King's Daughter with Daisy Ridley and Ben Mendelsohn. And I confuse her with Emma Watson a lot. 2 British women who have been in big-time franchises, Star Wars or Harry Potter. I've seen Ben Mendelsohn in this movie. And this movie is basically she doesn't know when she's growing up her dad kidnapped her mother, blah, 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 blah. And you just think you're watching a movie about a girl living in the wilderness, and then it stops where the mother tries to escape the wilderness, and they go into police custody. And then you fast forward into the future where she's an adult with a husband and a kid, and supposedly the father's back, and so she has to go looking for him, because if she doesn't end him, he's going to come back and haunt her and her family, and it ruins her life, blah, blah, blah. And her stepdad was apparently the sheriff who took her in with the mother and stuff. And I was like, okay, this movie is pretty boring for a quote-unquote thriller. As they say, tense thriller. It's an hour and 40-something minutes. It's not too long. It's not too short, but it was average. It was kind of boring. Then I watched The Holdovers, and the reason I put it in because I wanted to watch a long movie, and it was 2 hours and like 14 minutes of credits, so it was 2 hour plus. It was Paul Giamatti and Divine Jordan Randolph and Dominic Sessa. So the movie is about this high school prep school professor, like a private school. I thought it was a college, but it's a prep school. Where it's Christmas vacation and everyone's leaving, but there are some people whose parents, live in other countries, or they're out of town, or they're not able to have them, so he's got to watch the kids. And one of these kids think he's going to go home to his mother, but he's not. So he's stuck there, and a lot of them are causing, like, problems and everything, and he's just like, I don't want to be here. I got roped into doing this, but also the dude lives on campus, so it's not like he's going anywhere. And, of course, Divine Jordan Randolph plays the chef, and they have to throw in the backstory of her son dying in the military, so she didn't want to go to her sister's, yada, 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 so she's going to stay there and cook. The janitor sometimes shows up. And yeah, so the two of them are like watching these kids, and they got to deal with them, and then most of the kids eventually leave, and the whole movie's about the one kid who couldn't go visit with his mother, and then he learns more about the professor that he doesn't like, and he learns more about the student that he thinks is really bright but could potentially throwing his future away, and it's an interesting movie. Paul Giamatti's good at playing kind of weirdos and stuff, so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good enough movie to sit through 2 hours plus, but it's not a comedy. It's a drama. Again, mislabeling movies is a problem. Then I watched The Marvels, and again, never was a huge fan of Brie Larson being casted as Captain Marvel, but I know her as Miss Marvel from reading comic books and watching the cartoons as a kid. I know Captain Marvel is Billy Batson. I'm going to continue to say that. But again, any movie with Samuel L. Jackson's pretty good. The whole cat creature things are weird. But, like, again, the first movie was all right. Because they're explaining how she got, like, her powers, why she's in space, etc., etc. And they're like, cool, cool, cool. And then she's got to save the day, and they introduce, like, the Kree and all these other people. But apparently they want you to know, because I don't know if there's any Disney Plus series that, for this movie, which wasn't that long, it was an hour and 40-something minutes, with one post-credit scene and then cats meowing at the end, so you don't have to sit all the way through the end. Spoiler alert. One post-credit scene, y'all got to do. But so in this one, it just thrust you into the movie, and it's supposed to be 13, so it's not rated R, but they thrust you into the movie where there's a space station that Samuel Jackson is running. I don't know if it's with S.H.I.E.L.D. or not, what a government agency, and of course, one of his best astronaut lieutenants is apparently Brie Larson's fake niece, her best friend, who in the first movie, remember, was a pilot with her years ago before she left, whatever the point is. And she apparently has powers, and you just have to know, like, okay, she's got powers. No explanation, just, bam, she's thrusted into it. Then they introduced the, Kamala Khan's character, who I remember having stretchy arms and other stuff that made her powers like crystal, and moving other stuff with her powers, and a gauntlet or something on her hand, whatever. And she's kind of just thrusted in there, and there's no, like, really introduction to explaining, who she is and what's going on. They just thrust her and her parents and her brother into the movie, along with this woman who's apparently Captain Marvel's niece, and they have her living on a ship, and then there's this woman who's wearing an outfit that looks like the outfit similar to Captain Marvel, and you're really, really damn confused. You're like, what is going on? And apparently, she was on a planet that Captain Marvel was trying to save, apparently, but it made things worse, and they don't like her, and then there's the people, the Kree, and then there's the other aliens they're trying to save, too. So like all these aliens going on, it's confusing, and the three of them have to team up together, even though one's never like fought and the other one is just a teenager. So it's all over the place, badly written, poorly executed. But of course, someone's got, she saves the day in the end because they put a lot of money and effort into her character. She's not going to just die in the second movie. She's not going to disappear, because there'll be other Avenger movies coming up. But so it was Then I watched The Last Voyage of the Dementor, and then they say it's horror, and they were right. It's The Legend of Dracula is Born. So apparently there's a ship going to England, and then they got cargo on there, and apparently the cargo is apparently him, and he had brought a woman, his wife, on ship, and there's a kid, and there's a black doctor who's saying he can't doctor anywhere, and it's almost 2 hours long, so it's like an hour, 49, 50 minutes before the credits show up, and it was pretty boring with them, like, not being okay with the black doctor, and then this lady on board, and then people are dying and getting killed and eaten, and then everyone dies pretty much except for the black guy, and he now has his own mission, and he's got to stop Dracula. I don't know. It was not great. It was not horrible. It just was But it's something you put on in the background when you have other things to do, like myself, because if I want to be really busy and productive, that's the best way to do it. So yeah, the best movies I watched this week were Hotel Transylvania 4, and The Holdovers. I think those are the two best movies that I watched. The average movies that I watched were What Happens Later, The Martian King and the Marvels, and The Last Voyage of Denver. None of them sucked. It's just The Martian King and The Last Voyage were just bleh. What Happens Later wasn't as good as people thought it was. And The Marvels was, as you always say, sequels are never as good as the first. And the first one looks way better now, hindsight, after watching both of them. Thanks again for listening to another edition of Movie Review Observation number 197. For On the Radar Tape Block, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.